I met Ava at a casual backyard barbecue on a warm summer evening. She walked in laughing, confident, with sunlight catching in her hair like a scene from a movie. I wasn't looking for anything serious that day, but sometimes life has other plans. We reached for the same drink at the cooler, and we both laughed at the awkward timing. Her smile was easy, warm, the kind that made you forget the noise around you instantly. We started talking, and before I knew it, hours had passed without either of us noticing. She asked about my job, and I told her I worked in tech without adding anything more. I kept it simple, honest, and calm, not hinting at the salary or position behind it. She said she worked in marketing for a startup and loved creative projects and fast-paced work. We talked about travel dreams, embarrassing childhood stories, and favorite movies like Old Friends. She made fun of my taste in action films, and I joked about her obsession with rom-coms. It felt easy, natural, like breathing, like something that was meant to happen from the start. At the end of the night, we exchanged numbers, promising to meet again soon without hesitation. I remember walking home feeling excited, hopeful, maybe even a little overwhelmed by possibility. Our first dates were simple, cozy dinners, long walks, and late-night conversations that felt endless. She didn't ask about money, cars, or luxury. She asked about dreams and fears and values. I drove my old Honda, wore my regular clothes, and kept everything low-key on purpose. I had learned the hard way that showing wealth too soon attracts the wrong kind of love. With Ava, I wanted to see if she cared about who I was beneath everything shiny. Every moment with her felt real, pure, like I had finally escaped shallow dating games forever. We made pasta together in my small apartment kitchen, laughing over spilled sauce and burnt garlic. She told me she appreciated simplicity, and I believed her with every part of my heart. We spent weekends hiking, sharing playlists, cooking cheap meals, and dreaming like young hopefuls do. Nothing about those days felt forced. Nothing felt heavy or transactional or tied to status. She said I was different from guys she'd dated before, and I believed that too. I thought maybe I had finally found someone who saw me, not what I could provide. So I built trust slowly, carefully, protecting the most vulnerable parts of myself and my future. I didn't pretend to be poor. I just didn't perform wealth for validation or approval. I wanted a partner, not an investor or a critic waiting to measure my worth. And in those early months, she made me believe love like that still existed in this world. Looking back, maybe that was the most dangerous part, how easy it was to trust her. Because when someone feels perfect at the beginning, you never expect they might break you later. Everything shifted so slowly at first that I almost missed it. One day, Ava casually mentioned her ex, saying his name like it had no weight. His name was Brandon, and she said it with a softness I didn't recognize. She said he worked in finance and always knew the best places to take her. I brushed it off, thinking everyone has a past and memories that linger. But then the mentions came more frequently, slipping into conversations uninvited. She would say things like, "Brandon loved this restaurant," while we ate simple pasta. Or, "He surprised me with designer gifts," as she eyed her regular purse thoughtfully. At first, she laughed when she talked about him, like she was just reminiscing. But underneath that laugh, I started hearing something else, longing. I didn't panic, because love isn't built on insecurity, or so I believed then. So I stayed calm, listened, and hoped she was simply processing old memories. But slowly, her tone transformed from casual nostalgia to subtle comparison. She would sigh at vacation photos online and say, "We used to travel like that." She started scrolling luxury apartments and sending me links with dreamy captions. I'd respond gently, reminding her that comfort doesn't always come from price tags. She'd smile and say she understood, but disappointment flickered in her eyes every time. Soon she began pointing at cars on the street and saying, "He drove something like that." It wasn't overt criticism yet, but the shift was happening, quiet and sharp. Then came the first question about my career ambitions, posed like friendly curiosity. "Do you see yourself staying in your position long term?" she asked one night casually. I told her I loved my job, valued balance, and enjoyed the life I built. Her smile tightened just enough for me to notice, but she didn't say more. Not then. A few weeks later, she asked if I'd ever considered getting an MBA. She framed it as encouragement, but her tone held something darker, expectation. I answered honestly. I didn't need one for my field or my goals. She gave a small shrug, the kind that says, "I guess ambition isn't for everyone." Little comments like that started slipping out, quiet, but cutting in their precision. When she saw social media posts of friends traveling or getting engaged lavishly, she tensed. I noticed the way she stared at her phone, jaw tight, comparing lives silently. She began dressing more luxuriously around me, almost like testing reactions. And once, when we walked past a boutique, she paused deliberately. She didn't ask me to buy anything, not yet, but the message hung heavy. It was no longer about memories. It was about measurements. Who I was versus who she once had. Who she expected me to be versus who I chose to be. I still hoped it was a phase, a flicker of insecurity, not a reveal of character. I told myself love isn't perfect, and people have moments of weakness. But deep down, a quiet alarm started ringing, faint but persistent. I didn't know then that this was only the beginning of the unraveling. The first tiny cracks in something I thought was solid and safe forever. The shift from subtle comments to open pressure happened faster than I expected. One evening, Ava looked at my car and sighed like it personally disappointed her. "You ever think about upgrading?" she asked, eyeing a luxury SUV passing by. I told her my Honda worked fine, reliable and paid off, nothing wrong with it. She smiled politely, but her eyes said, "This isn't enough for me." Soon it wasn't just the car. It was everything I owned or didn't own. She pointed at high-rise apartments online, sliding her phone toward me casually. "Imagine waking up with floor-to-ceiling windows," she whispered like a promise. I nodded, but said it wasn't a priority, that comfort mattered more than flash. She didn't argue, but disappointment flickered, sharp and unmistakable. Then came travel, fancy resorts, five-star restaurants, designer hotels in every city. She started sending me pictures of couples drinking champagne in infinity pools. "This could be us," she'd text, then add, "if we planned our finances better." I didn't react, because arguing felt pointless against expectations disguised as suggestions. She brought up education again, asking if I'd considered Ivy League business programs. "It would put you on another level," she said, voice hopeful and hungry. I laughed it off and told her I didn't need a degree to prove success. She didn't laugh back. Instead, she said, "Brandon always planned ahead. He thought big." That name again, like a ghost haunting our relationship, always lurking behind her smile. I asked her gently why she kept comparing. She said she wasn't comparing. "It's about building a future," she insisted, like love alone wasn't enough currency. Suddenly, our simple dates weren't charming anymore. They were temporary sacrifices. She started dressing in flashy clothes for normal nights out, waiting for compliments. I kept things modest, intentionally, trying to see if she valued presence over presentation. She didn't notice the test, but she noticed what I didn't buy, didn't flaunt. Her praise for me shifted into critiques, coated in sugar and concern. "You're amazing, but you could be doing more," she'd say with that soft voice. Ambition wasn't the issue. Her definition of success was. I wanted stability, peace, genuine connection, not performance for strangers. She wanted glitter, applause, envy from people who didn't matter. Soon she started comparing us to couples online, like life was a scoreboard. Her friend's boyfriend bought a car. We heard about it for a week. Someone got engaged with a huge ring. Suddenly, future planning became urgent. She even brought up prenups once, not to protect me but herself. Real power couples build together, she said, meaning I needed to climb higher. She thought she was motivating me. Really, she was pushing me away inch by inch. I kept quiet, observing, hoping love would soften the edges sharpening inside her. But every new comment carved a little more space between who we were and who she wanted. She didn't realize I already had everything she dreamed of. And she didn't know she was slowly failing the most important test of her life. The breaking point didn't arrive like a storm. It arrived like a whisper that suddenly cut deep. We went to Lily's birthday dinner at a nice restaurant. Nothing extravagant but warm and lively. Everyone was laughing, sharing stories, clinking glasses, enjoying life without competition or ego. Lily talked about saving money for her dream trip to Japan, her eyes glowing with pride. She said she'd been putting aside a little each month, excited for the adventure someday. I smiled, genuinely happy for her, admiring her dedication and simple joy. Then Ava leaned back, twirled her hair, and released a quiet laugh that felt sharp. "We'll see if we can afford to go with you," she said, glancing at me dismissively. "Oh, wait," she added, loud enough for the table. "Ethan's salary might not stretch that far." The laughter around us stopped instantly, replaced by cold silence and stunned eyes. I felt heat rise up my neck, not anger yet, just shock and embarrassment. Lily's face flushed with discomfort, and she shot me an apologetic look immediately. A couple of friends shifted awkwardly, pretending to check their phones or menus. Ava kept smiling, unaware she had just revealed something ugly inside her. Or maybe she knew exactly what she was doing and thought it was harmless humor. She nudged my arm like it was a playful joke, but there was no playfulness in it. I forced a small smile, brushed it off, and tried to keep the evening pleasant. But the damage sat heavy in my chest, a weight I couldn't ignore anymore. Later, when we got home, she acted like nothing had happened at all. She scrolled through Instagram, sighing dramatically as she looked at luxury vacations. Then my phone buzzed with a work message, and I told her I had to finish something. Minutes later, her text appeared, sharp like a blade disguised as honesty. "Must be nice getting overtime when your salary is so pathetic." Before I could even react, another message came through. "Brandon earned triple what you make. Sometimes I wonder if I downgraded." I stared at the screen, frozen, feeling a clarity I hadn't felt before. Not sadness, not confusion, just truth, clean and unmistakable. I didn't reply. I didn't defend myself. I didn't remind her who I really was. Instead, I finished my work while my heart finished letting her go. That night, she texted again about our future and needing stability and ambition. But for me, the future with her dissolved the moment she revealed her core. A heart obsessed with comparison can never love with peace or loyalty. When I got home, I pulled my pay stubs, investment records, and bank statements. Not to brag, not to win, but to close a chapter with full honesty and no regret. I took photos of everything, facts sharp and undeniable, then turned off my phone. I slept better that night than I had in months, because certainty is a quiet blessing. The next morning she arrived with her breakup speech ready, polished like a script. She talked about dreams, lifestyle compatibility, and wanting more for both of us. Her voice was soft, her tone gentle, but every word said, "You are not enough." I waited patiently, calmly, until she finished rewriting her disappointment into logic. Then I handed her my phone and watched the truth wipe every assumption from her face. And in that moment, I wasn't angry, I was free. Ava stared at my phone like it had suddenly turned into a live grenade. Her breath caught, her lips parted, and confusion flooded her perfectly practiced expression. She scrolled again, slower this time, like her brain refused to accept the numbers. Pay stubs, bank accounts, investment statements, stock vesting records. Every swipe shattered another illusion she had built about me. $32,000 a month. Six-figure balances sitting untouched. Portfolios climbing past 7 figures. Her hand trembled, and she blinked like she had been slapped by reality itself. This can't be right, she whispered, voice cracking under the weight of truth. It is, I said calmly, watching her world collapse without raising my voice. But you drive an old car, she stuttered, like that detail made the wealth impossible. I like my car. It gets me where I need to go without being a billboard, I replied. And your apartment, she continued, panic tightening every syllable. It's peaceful, affordable, and mine, I answered without emotion. She looked up at me with eyes full of sudden regret, not love. Regret is a different language, and I understood it clearly. You lied to me, she said, desperate to rewrite the narrative in her favor. I never did, I replied softly. You assumed. I simply didn't perform for you. She swallowed hard, tears forming like they could erase the last 2 years. If I had known, she began, but I cut her off gently. If you had known, you would have acted different. That's the problem. Her face crumbled, mascara already threatening to streak like a sad painting. I love you, she whispered, reaching for my hand like it could save her. But her fingers brushed air, because mine were not reaching back anymore. No, I said, voice steady. You loved the idea of wealth. You hated what you thought was average. She shook her head violently, panic rising like a tide. I can change. I didn't mean those things. I was frustrated. Please, just give me time. Time doesn't fix greed. It just gives it more room to breathe. You chose status over sincerity, I said quietly. You already made your decision. She collapsed into tears, pleading, bargaining, promising a future she never valued before. If you take me back, I'll prove it, she cried. I'll sign a prenup, I'll start fresh. There won't be a prenup, I replied gently, because there won't be a marriage. Her sobs filled the room, loud and messy, but my heart felt strangely calm. For months, I doubted myself. In that moment, I finally trusted my intuition. I opened the door slowly, giving her space to walk out with whatever dignity remained. Please don't do this, she begged, voice raw and broken like a child. You already did, I answered, not with anger but finality. She stepped outside, trembling, clutching her purse like it was the only stability left. I closed the door behind her, and silence settled like peace, finally remembering my name. Her messages came later, apologies, anger, begging, denial, but I didn't answer. Because once someone prices your worth, you never trust their love again. Lily reached out a week after everything imploded, her message short but sincere. Hey, are you okay? I heard what happened. You didn't deserve that. There was no judgment, no curiosity laced with gossip, just genuine concern. We met at a small coffee shop, not fancy, just quiet and warm like honesty. When she sat down, she looked nervous, but not for herself, for me. I'm not here to defend her, she began, voice steady and direct. She crossed a line, more than one honestly. Hearing someone acknowledge it, without excuses, felt like breathing again. We talked for over an hour about everything, except money, status, or image. She didn't ask about my salary. She didn't ask why I hid anything. She just asked how I felt, like feelings still mattered in a world obsessed with optics. For the first time in months, my chest didn't feel heavy when I spoke. She reminded me that empathy still existed, quiet and unpolished, not performative. We didn't flirt. We simply existed in the same space and breathed easier together. I noticed how she listened, instead of waiting to talk. How she didn't need to prove anything or win anything. How she talked about her art projects and her dream trip to Japan with childlike joy. A joy not tied to price tags or bragging rights, but pure excitement for life itself. Give yourself time, she said as we stood up to leave. You deserve someone who sees you, not your bank account. I walked away feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time, hope. Weeks passed, and slowly our conversations became more frequent, more natural. She checked in after long workdays, told me to rest, not hustle harder. She shared funny memes at midnight and random thoughts at lunch. No expectations, no pressure, just honesty flowing in both directions. One evening, I asked if she wanted to get dinner, just the two of us. She paused, thoughtful and gentle. "I do," she said, "but not like a secret or a betrayal. Let's do this right." That sentence right there, respect over desire, told me everything I needed to know. So we waited a little longer, until emotions settled and noise faded. And when we finally went to dinner, it wasn't fireworks or drama. It was calm, steady, warm, like choosing peace over chaos. We talked, laughed, shared stories, not to impress but to connect. The waiter took our order, and before he left, Lily said, "Separate checks, please." Not because she needed to prove independence, but because she genuinely meant it. I smiled, knowing I could buy the place if I wanted, yet grateful I didn't have to. Later, when I gifted her a small, thoughtful surprise, not expensive, she lit up. Not because of value, but because I had listened to something small she once mentioned. She hugged me softly and whispered, "You could have brought noodles and I'd still be happy." That sentence healed something I didn't realize was still bruised. Meanwhile, Ava spiraled, sending long messages about regret and lost chances. But regret isn't love, and envy isn't loyalty, and memory isn't entitlement. When she found out I was seeing Lily, she exploded, calling it betrayal and injustice. But you cannot betray someone who already walked out emotionally and morally. Lily stood her ground, calm and honest, refusing to let guilt rewrite reality. "You valued money more than him," she told Ava. "I value him more than money." That truth settled like a stone on calm water, undeniable and permanent. Now Lily and I are building something slow, steady, real, and beautifully ordinary. She doesn't care about luxury, but she appreciates kindness like it's priceless. And for the first time in years, love feels like breathing, not performing. The world outside can chase status and noise. I've found something quieter, truer. Someone who would stand beside me, whether I drove a Honda or a Bentley. Someone who chooses hearts over headlines, moments over optics, presence over pride. Sometimes the right person arrives disguised as a lesson, not a miracle. And sometimes the miracle was there all along, waiting for you to let go of the noise. Now life feels quiet in the best way, like peace finally found its way back home. Lily and I plan to visit Japan soon, the same dream Ava once laughed at. She insisted on paying her own airfare, not out of pride, but partnership. I'll book the hotels, not to impress her, but to share something beautiful together. We cook breakfast on slow mornings, laugh at random things, and talk about real life. No status competition, no silent scoreboard, no hidden agenda waiting to surface. Sometimes she looks at me and says she'd still choose me even if I had nothing. And I believe her, because she proved it long before she knew the rest. Ava still tries to reach out sometimes, but her messages only remind me of what I escaped. Not heartbreak, but a life where love was conditional and peace was never enough. I don't hate her. I just don't belong in the world she worships. In the end, the test wasn't about money. It was about loyalty, depth, and truth. Some people love wealth. Some people love the person behind it. And the rare ones, like Lily, love you whether you rise, fall, or stand still.